The forest was silent that night, too silent. Even the crickets, those restless singers of the dark, had gone quiet. Only the sound of footsteps, one after the other, crushing the dry leaves beneath them. It was Obidi, the best hunter in Umuaro Village, a man whose arrows never missed, whose pride walked before him like a shadow. He moved through the fog with his bow drawn, eyes sharp as a hawk's. But then, something strange happened. From the heart of the forest came a voice. Soft, calm, almost human. "Hunter," it called, "why do you seek death tonight?" Obidi froze. The voice came again, closer this time. And before him stood a small antelope, its eyes glowing faintly like embers in moonlight. Its mouth moved, and it spoke again. "I know why you are here, but do not shoot." Obidi's heart pounded. He blinked hard, and for a moment, he almost dropped his bow. A talking animal? Impossible. Witchcraft. He steadied his hand, took aim, and released. The arrow flew straight, cutting through the fog, and found its mark. The forest screamed. The wind turned cold. And from that moment, Obidi's life began to unravel. Because in Umuaro, killing what speaks comes with a price. The arrow struck deep, and the antelope fell. Its eyes still glowed faintly, and as the light faded, the forest exhaled a long, eerie sigh. Every branch above seemed to whisper. Obidi stepped closer, gripping his bow tightly, his breath shallow. He looked down, and saw something strange. No blood, none at all. Only white dust spilling from the wound, shimmering like ground chalk beneath the moon. He bent to touch it, and the earth trembled. A cold wind swirled around him, whispering his name. "Obidi! Obidi!" He stumbled back. The body of the animal began to dissolve into the dust, vanishing into the soil. Then, silence again. The forest returned to stillness, but it wasn't the same silence. It was heavier, watching him, waiting. Obidi spat on the ground, muttering. "Evil tricks of the forest. Spirits or not. I am Obidi, son of Ozuoma. I fear no talking beast." He tied his hunting bag tighter and turned toward the village path. But as he walked, each tree he passed seemed to whisper, "You have taken what was not yours." He pretended not to hear, but deep inside, fear had begun to take root. By the time Obidi reached Umuaro, dawn was breaking. The cock crowed, and the morning mist rolled through the huts. He walked through the square with steady steps, forcing pride onto his face. But something felt wrong. People were staring. Old Mama Chica, the palm wine seller, stopped mid-sentence when she saw him. The children chasing their goat froze and ran indoors. Even the dogs barked at him, then hid under baskets. He frowned. "What is this?" he muttered. When he reached his hut, his wife Neka was waiting by the door, her face pale as clay. She whispered, "Obidi, what did you bring back from the forest?" He laughed dryly. "Me? Nothing but victory. The forest is empty today." But her eyes darted to his bag. "Then what is that smell?" He opened it, and gasped. Inside the bag was not fur, not flesh, but fine white powder, glimmering faintly like morning dew. He stepped back in shock. "What trick is this?" The wind outside howled softly, as if answering him. Then, from the distance, a deep voice echoed faintly through the air. "Obidi, you were warned." Neka screamed and ran into the hut, clutching her chest. Obidi stood frozen, staring at the bag that now pulsed faintly with light. By midday, word had spread across Umuaro like fire in dry grass. The hunter had killed something strange. Something that spoke. The village square filled quickly as elders gathered under the old silk cotton tree. Elder Okonta, the oldest among them, summoned Obidi. When he arrived, heads turned. The elder's deep eyes fixed on him. "Obidi," he said slowly, "is it true? You killed a creature that spoke." Obidi hesitated, then said, "I killed an animal, yes, but talking? No. It was a trick of the wind." The elder sighed. "You lie poorly, son of Ozuoma. Long before you were born, the spirits placed boundaries in our forests. Among them are the Ikmiri, guardians of the streams. They sometimes take the form of beasts to test men's hearts. A murmur swept the crowd. Okonta continued, when a man kills what speaks, he invites the curse of the talking dust, and his shadow begins to walk before him. Obidi's heart pounded. Superstition, he said sharply. But as he turned to leave, his own shadow, long and dark, stretched across the ground, and seemed to move before he did. The crowd gasped. A cold hush fell over Umuaro. That night, Obidi couldn't sleep. Every sound, the chirping of the crickets, the creak of bamboo, felt louder, closer. Neka lay beside him, whispering prayers under her breath. When the moonlight slipped through the window, he saw it again, his shadow on the wall, perfectly clear. But when he lifted his hand, the shadow did not move. It simply stared back. He froze, sweat pouring down his neck. Then the shadow began to walk, slowly, across the wall. It paused, turned toward him, and its mouth moved. Obidi, it whispered, the forest remembers. He leapt from the bed, shouting, leave me. Neka woke and screamed as the lantern fell, shattering. When he looked again, the shadow was gone. Only darkness remained, and the sound of the wind whispering through the doorway. The next morning, the villagers found strange white dust at his doorstep. The elders shook their heads. The dust is watching him, they said. And as the sun rose, Obidi realized something. His shadow was gone completely. Desperate, Obidi went to Dibia Onuora, the most feared healer in 3 villages. Onuora's hut sat by the riverbank, marked by charms and skulls of animals long dead. He knelt. Dibia, help me. I killed something that spoke. Now my shadow is gone. The old man's eyes flickered open, milky with age but sharp with wisdom. He drew 3 lines on the ground with white chalk. Tell me, he said slowly, did it warn you before you killed it? Yes, Obidi whispered. Then your fate is sealed. Obidi's hands trembled. You can undo it. You're the strongest Dibia. Onuora shook his head. You killed one of the Ikmiri's children. Their words carry life. Their blood, even their dust, binds the killer to the forest's heart. You will not die quickly. The forest will take you piece by piece. Obidi's mouth went dry. What must I do? The Dibia looked at him for a long moment, then whispered. Return what you took. But remember, the forest never forgets. 3 nights passed. Obidi stayed awake each one, staring into the dark, waiting for his shadow to return. But it never did. Instead, strange things began to happen. When he walked through the market, calabashes cracked on their own. Palm wine turned sour at his touch. Children who looked at him began to cry without knowing why. He tried to speak to Neka, but she had grown distant, terrified. At night she lit candles and sprinkled salt around the room. She would not sleep beside him anymore. Then came the worst of it. When Obidi looked into water, whether a bowl or the river, he saw not his reflection, but the face of the talking antelope. It would blink once, then whisper, return what you stole. One night, he smashed the water bowl in rage. His hands bled, but the dust in his hunting bag shimmered again, pulsing faintly as if alive. He stared at it, trembling. The Dibia's words echoed in his mind, return what you took. So before dawn, Obidi strapped his bow to his back once more. The hunter who had once gone into the forest for glory, now entered it for mercy. The forest welcomed him differently this time. No bird sang. No wind stirred. Only the sound of his breath, heavy and uncertain, filled the air. He followed the same path he had taken days before, but now the trees seemed taller, older, watching. The deeper he went, the colder it grew. Then he saw it, a faint trail of white dust across the ground, glowing like moonlight. It wound through the roots and rocks, leading deeper still. He followed it, step by step. At a clearing, he found a pool of water, perfectly still, shining like glass. The dust trailed into it, then disappeared. He knelt, whispering, "Eek Miri, if you can hear me, I did not know. I beg you." Before he could finish, ripples spread across the surface. A voice rose, calm, echoing, "You were warned." From beneath the water, shapes began to form, hands, faces, eyes. And then, the talking animal rose again, made of mist and light. It looked at him silently for a moment, then spoke. "You shed the blood of words. You shall learn their weight." The forest trembled, and Obadi's bow burst into flames. Obadi fell to his knees, covering his face as fire danced around him. But the flames did not burn. They whispered. Each flame became a voice, hundreds, maybe thousands, whispering stories of hunters long dead. Voices of those who had ignored warnings, who had taken what was sacred. Then the talking animal spoke again. "To undo your curse, you must walk where the forest remembers." Suddenly, the fire vanished, and Obadi found himself standing in a new place. The trees glowed faintly with white symbols. The ground pulsed beneath his feet like a living thing. He heard drums in the distance, slow, rhythmic, otherworldly. Through the fog, he saw ghostly hunters marching, their eyes hollow, their shadows gone. One of them turned to him and said, "We too killed what spoke. Now we guard the silence forever." Obadi's heart thundered. He dropped to the ground, trembling. "Please," he whispered, "show me the way to peace." But the ghosts only pointed behind him. When he turned, he saw himself, standing there, another Obadi, shadowless and smiling coldly. The second Obadi, the mirror self, spoke first. "You think you can beg your way out, hunter? The forest gave you warning. Yet you mocked it." Obadi stepped back, horrified. The double advanced, each footstep echoing like thunder. "Do you know what you killed? That animal carried the prayers of the dying, words meant to heal the land. You silenced it." "I didn't know," Obadi cried. "But you heard it speak," the reflection hissed. "And still you killed." The ground cracked beneath them. From the fissures rose visions, Necker weeping alone, the village covered in dust, crops withering. Obadi fell to his knees. "Please, I will return what I took. Tell me how." The mirror self leaned close and whispered, "Sacrifice your pride. Offer your blood to the water that spoke." Then it faded, leaving behind a single arrow glowing red. Obadi picked it up, his hands shaking. He knew what he had to do, and what it would cost. He returned to the glowing pool under the moonlight. The mist still lingered, thick, cold, whispering his name. He knelt, holding the red arrow. "Eek Miri," he said, voice breaking, "I was blind. I was proud. Take my strength, take my life if you must, but spare my people." He cut his palm and let the blood drip into the water. The pool hissed, boiling briefly, then turned calm again. From the surface rose the talking animal once more, peaceful this time. It looked at him for a long moment, then spoke softly. "The forest forgives, but never forgets. Your blood returns balance." The creature dissolved into light, and the dust in Obadi's bag vanished completely. As he stood, weak but alive, his shadow slowly returned, stretching behind him like a long-lost companion. He looked up at the night sky and whispered, "I have learned." But a distant echo replied, "Have you?" Then the forest fell silent again. When Obadi stepped out of the forest, dawn was breaking. Birds sang again, the first time in many days. The wind was gentle, cool, almost forgiving. He felt lighter, his body weak but his heart calmer. The shadow behind him stretched true once more. As he approached Umuaro, the village appeared strange, quiet, distant, almost asleep. Smoke rose from the hearths, but no one stirred. He called out to the first compound. "Neka! Mama Chica!" No reply. He walked into the market square, and froze. Everything was covered in a thin layer of white dust. Empty calabashes lay scattered, and the air smelled of river mud and incense. His heart sank. What have I done? Then a voice called softly from behind him. It was Neka, her eyes hollow, her clothes grey with dust. Obidi, they said the curse followed you. The river spirits came the night you left. They took our voices. No one in Umuaro can speak anymore. Her lips trembled, but no sound came. Obidi's knees buckled. He realized his blood had freed him, but silenced everyone else. The next hours felt endless. Obidi ran from hut to hut. Every villager turned to him with desperate, soundless eyes. Children tried to cry, but no tears came. Men struck drums to speak through rhythm instead of words. The world of Umuaro had become a silent dance of fear. He climbed the shrine hill, where the elders once gathered, and there he saw Elder Okonta sitting in stillness. When their eyes met, the old man pointed to his mouth, sealed by chalk marks. Then he drew on the ground. You returned the dust, but took our voices with it. Obidi's mind swirled with dread. What kind of curse is this? He whispered. As the sun began to set, a low hum filled the air, faint at first, then louder, like thousands of distant whispers. He turned toward the forest again, and saw the trees moving. Branches swayed without wind. Then came the voice, deep, echoing, ancient. Balance is never without cost. The villagers fell to their knees, clutching their throats, eyes wide in terror. Obidi understood. The forest had not finished with him yet. That night, the moon glowed red, the color of death and spirits. Obidi stood alone at the edge of the forest. The white dust blew gently from the village, carried by the wind, as if urging him forward again. He closed his eyes. I took life, now life has been taken from my people. What more do you want? The voice replied through the rustling trees. You took words. Give words. He did not understand, not at first. Then he remembered the talking animal's final line. The forest forgives, but never forgets. Obidi realized that forgiveness meant more than sacrifice. It meant teaching others never to repeat his mistake. So he stepped forward into the darkness once more. The air shimmered, and suddenly, he was standing before the spirit pool again. The talking animal appeared, glowing faintly. Its eyes were kind, but sorrowful. Hunter, it said, speak, that others may learn. Tell them the story of your pride, so that silence may end. The animal's voice faded into the wind. Obidi's chest burned, and his tongue felt heavy with something ancient awakening. When Obidi woke, he was lying in the center of Umuaro's square. Villagers surrounded him, watching silently. He sat up slowly, realizing he was holding a piece of white chalk. Then, a voice came from within him, not his own, deeper, echoing, filled with rhythm. He began to speak. I was the hunter who killed what spoke, and I became silence itself. The forest does not punish, it teaches. The proud who walk without listening will one day hear nothing. The villagers gasped as sound returned to their ears. Whispers turned into cries. Voices echoed again through the huts, laughter, wails, songs, all bursting forth like rain after drought. Neka ran to him, tears streaming down her face. You brought our voices back, she whispered. But Obidi shook his head. No. The forest gave them back. I was only the lesson. From that day, every year, the people of Umuaro gathered to tell his story, not with drums, not with fear, but with respect for the words of the living and the unseen. Years later, when Obidi grew old, children would gather at his feet under the moonlight. They would beg him, Papa Obidi, tell us about the talking animal again. He would smile gently and begin. Once, there was a hunter who thought words were weak until they spoke back. Then he would pause, eyes glancing toward the forest. Sometimes, he swore he could still hear that voice, calm, familiar, whispering from the trees. You learned well. And when Obidi's final day came, the villagers buried him beside the forest he once feared. That night, the wind that moved through Umuaro carried whispers, not of sorrow, but of peace. From then on, no hunter in Umuaro ever raised a weapon against any creature that spoke, even in dreams. For they knew, the forest listens. And it never forgets. Long after Obidi was gone, the forest of Umuaro changed. Its paths became gentler, its air lighter. Travelers said that at dusk, if you stood by the river and listened closely, you could hear two voices, one human, one not, whispering in calm harmony. Elder Okonta used to say, "The hunter and the spirit still speak." They remind each other that pride has no home in the heart that listens. Children grew up hearing this. Whenever they went to fetch water or hunt small game, their parents warned them. If an animal speaks, do not answer in fear. Listen. The forest speaks truth only to those who carry peace. One evening, a young boy named Chike swore he heard a bird say his name. Instead of running, he bowed his head and greeted it softly. The bird sang once, then flew away, leaving a white feather on the ground. That feather, they say, marked the first blessing of a new generation, the proof that Umuaro was forgiven. Many seasons passed. The story of Obidi became a song, a slow, haunting melody sung during moonlit gatherings. Drummers beat softly while storytellers spoke his name with reverence. The hunter who silenced the forest, they would begin, and in his silence, found its voice. Mothers would sing it to their babies during storms, fathers would chant it to remind sons that strength means nothing without wisdom. Even strangers from faraway villages came to hear the tale. They brought gifts, carved figurines, cowrie shells, and kola nuts, as offerings of respect. The shrine of Ikmiri by the river grew sacred again. Priests painted white dust on their faces, a symbol not of curse but of balance. They taught that every word, spoken by man, spirit, or beast, carries the breath of the Creator. And so, the people of Umuaro began to live differently. They spoke softly, hunted carefully, and listened deeply. For they knew, words are living things. One Hamatan morning, an old traveler arrived at Umuaro. He wore a hooded cloak and carried no shadow behind him. When the guard stopped him, he smiled faintly and said, "I seek the place where a hunter once found his soul." They led him to the riverbank, where the shrine of Ikmiri stood. He knelt silently, dipped his hand in the water, and whispered, "Still watching me, old friend?" The river rippled once, as if replying. Then the wind rose suddenly, swirling white dust into the air. For a moment, the villagers who stood nearby swore they saw the outline of a man and an animal standing side by side. But when the dust settled, the stranger was gone. Only a single white arrow remained where he had knelt, shining faintly in the morning light. Elder Okonta, now weak with age, smiled knowingly. He whispered to himself, "The hunter returns, not in body, but in spirit." Generations later, the tale of Obidi was still told, but now it had grown larger, deeper. Children said he became a guardian spirit of hunters, elders said he walked between worlds. Whatever the truth, his story lived, and living stories are the heartbeat of a people. A young girl named Adaora, gifted with a storyteller's tongue, became the keeper of Obidi's legend. Each festival night, she would draw a circle in the sand and begin. Once, there was a man who killed what spoke, and learned to speak with silence. Her voice carried across the fire, weaving emotion into every pause. And sometimes, when the crowd fell quiet, a faint rustle would move through the trees, as though someone were listening. Adaora always smiled when that happened. Because she knew, the forest was still part of the story. And Obidi was still teaching. In time, the land itself carried the story's breath. White dust from Umuaro's soil was used in rituals of cleansing, a reminder that mistakes, too, can purify when met with humility. Travelers passing through the region heard the saying, "Do not kill what speaks, for silence has teeth." The elders of Umuaro would explain, "Every voice, whether of man, beast, or spirit, carries wisdom. Those who listen become part of harmony, those who don't, become part of the warning." And so the story of Obidi, once a curse, became a compass. A living reminder that pride blinds, but listening opens the unseen. At sunset, when the forest winds whisper through the leaves, villagers still pause to listen. Some say they hear Obidi's voice, soft and distant. Words are not noise, they are the soul of the living. Then the forest falls quiet again, peaceful, eternal. And the dust settles, carrying the weight of a lesson that will never die. The wind carries stories like this, across generations. From the hunter, to the listener, from the forest, to your heart. If this tale touched you, don't let it vanish into silence. Tap subscribe, so the next story finds you before the night does. Leave a comment, tell us, would you have listened to the talking animal, or shot your arrow too? Like, share, and join the circle of stories. Because in Umuaro, every story returns to the one